Hi everybody, this is Christian Zilovitz coming to you live with Daisy Kitty, who in a year or so probably won't be here, so it's good that she's with us tonight. It is third shift, and I am the third shift lab. So I'm going to start reading some chapters, and possibly the whole book, or close to it, from One Teenager in 10. One Teenager in 10 was one of the first collections. Yes, Daisy, that's my shoe. One of the first collections of writings from gay and lesbian and bi youth from around the United States. And this was published in 1983. And it actually, this is not the first publication of it. It is edited by ANN HERON. And this has a new introduction by Rita Brown. Thank you, Daisy. I didn't know Daisy liked my shoes so much. Also known as my phone support. So this was copyright 1983, and I wonder, it's by, and copyright 1983 by Allison Publications. Again, this is called One Teenager in 10. I've had this book for many years, practically since I came out, and I found it on a used bookshelf. And one of the stories that's here is by Aaron Frick, who was the first boy to test the ability to bring his boyfriend to his prom, and he won the right to do so. And his story, his story's pretty intense. But I'm just going to read to you from the beginning, and we may not get through the whole book at any given time, but I wanted to introduce it to you. And the first thing I'm going to do is do something I don't think I've ever done in years, is to actually read the introduction by Rita Brown. What is it about being an adolescent that provokes either mirth or pontification from older people? Part of it is that the years can bring wisdom if you know how to use your accumulating experiences. Older people want to tell young people what they've learned to save them their mistakes. Part of it, too, is the hidden anger that older people feel toward younger people. Their resentment has to do with the way young people look. Good. Nobody really minds getting older, but everyone minds looking older. Hence that thin veneer of hostility often disguised as humor. But I often think the major reason that adolescence arouses so many people is that it is the time of life when one addresses sex and sexuality. Hello, sex. Ah, if only it were that easy. Let's set aside the crazies of the world for a moment. You know, those people who believe that sex is evil. Fortunately, most Americans are reasonable people, live and let live, but even reasonable people go pale at the thought of their daughter or their son coming of age sexually. Tricky business, this attitude of parents when it comes to the sexual development of their children. If they did a good job raising a child, it would seem that they would have little to worry about. The young person should have a solid sense of right and wrong, as well as a complete understanding of how reproduction works. Very important. Ovulation, kids. However, parents are going through adolescence in reverse. By the time the child is a teenager, the parent is hitting middle age. Middle age hits back. So each party, parent or child, is passing through a turbulent transition period. Under the circumstances, it's hard for either side to listen to the other. Not surprising. It's also hard for any parent to let go, to gracefully accept one's own age and the advancing age of one's child. From the opposite side of the fence, young people are struggling for independence while backsliding, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This can best be illustrated by the comment, "Dad, I want my own apartment. Will you pay the rent?" College, for those fortunate enough to attend, affords both parents and children a DMZ, demilitarized zone. The parent rests secure in the fact that there are adults around. The child is delighted to be on his or her own, sort of. But people that can't go to college are faced with the economic reality of self-support. If they stay at home to save on money, sooner or later, mom and dad are going to become flagrantly aware of their sex life. At least at college, there's a little time for everyone to get used to the idea that a young person has a body and a right to use it as she or he sees fit. While straight kids have a hard enough time with their parents over sexuality, for the gay kid, it's all the pure hell. What have I done wrong? Some parents will howl in an orgy of guilt. Others, less sensitive, immediately dump the fault on the child's shoulders. Others, less intelligent, desperately scan the horizon to find someone whom they can blame for this misfortune, a teacher, a friend, etc. What's the fuss about? The young person has not harmed anyone. They haven't violated the 10 Commandments, but they have violated the social norm. Not all of us can live within the social norm. Some of us are black or Asian or Spanish. Some of us are female in a world constructed for male needs. Some of us are homosexual. We don't fit the norm. It's not like any of us deliberately tried to join a minority. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, I think I'll be gay just to torment my parents. And if you want your parents to not worry about that, just tell them that you're trans. Can't you just be gay? Slowly throughout adolescence, we come to understand that we are the sexual minority. If parents, teachers, clergy people, and friends showed some understanding, it wouldn't be so bad. On this issue, understanding is in short supply. There's a good reason why parents and other people have such a negative response to homosexuality. Who do they know who is homosexual? Chances are no one, unless it is some distressed creature on the sidewalks, calling attention to him or herself by peculiar clothing and exaggerated mannerisms. We never see the successful gay people because gay people, unlike women or people of color, can hide. And hide they do. Imagine if the situation were reversed. Homosexual is the norm. I'm a parent and my daughter tells me she's a heterosexual. The only heterosexuals I've ever seen are streetwalkers. You bet I'd hit the roof. I wouldn't want any child of mine sucked into a terrible life like that. Until such time as gay people reveal themselves, the young person is caught in a fierce dilemma. She or he can't point to a respected person who is gay. There are few positive examples to show his or her parents. As to a national day of coming out, don't hold your breath. Fortunately, October 11th is National Coming Out Day these days. Gay people and politicians are the only Americans praised for lying. Suppose you don't want to be a liar. You want to be honest with others. You know you can't have true friendship with anyone if you lie. Also, you don't want to lie to your parents. It seems shabby somehow to delude the two people who bore you, fed you, clothed you, and hopefully did the best by you. The least you can do is tell them who you really are and trust their love to get you through. Sometimes love isn't enough. And we're reading One Teenager in 10, the introduction by Rita Mae Brown. Sometimes love isn't enough, or perhaps there isn't enough love. Rejection by one's own parents is a more common story than we know. A young woman can be rejected for bearing a child out of wedlock. A young man might be thrown out by his parents for falling in love with a woman of a different race. Some people are so preoccupied with their own sectarian religious beliefs that they would turn their backs on a child who develops different religious beliefs. You might ask, so what? Why are you telling me this? I'm telling you this because if you are a gay teen, I don't want you to become obsessed with your own homosexuality. There are plenty of other people suffering. You are not alone. Granted, you feel isolated in your peer group as well as at home, but try not to become too self-centered about it. After all, the unwed mother feels isolated too. If you focus on only one aspect of your life, it will warp you. If you ever drop into a gay bar, you'll see people there who couldn't come to grips with their own homosexuality. They think about it constantly. Their lives revolve around being gay. Who knows? Who doesn't know? Should I tell? Etc. Added in that is the unsavory fact that these people are in a bar and therefore are drinking. So now they've added an additional burden to their lives, booze. Or perhaps they are more rebellious in their self-destruction, so they take drugs. However you look at it, these poor souls are life's loners. And it says losers, actually. Don't be one of them. Who knows if you're gay? After age 25, roommates become suspicious. You've got a free ride until then. This doesn't mean at age 25 everyone is going to look at you and instantly decide that you're gay. But people aren't stupid. Most people know, and those who refuse to know quite obviously are rejecting a part of you. The real question is, do you want to know them? Is the good opinion of narrow-minded people important to you? If it is, then be prepared for a life of kissing people's butts. The people who could be your friends and who want to be your friends are sensitive people. They aren't going to ask you if you're gay. They probably think that you're ashamed of it and they don't want to ask you and embarrass you. You have some control over your life. Don't make yourself a bigger victim than you already are. You can decide to share your life with people. You can go to a lawyer if you're in trouble at work. There are legal aid societies for people without much money. Get the facts. You decide. You can decide, in a very real sense, who your friends, enemies, and employers are. Nobody pushes you around unless you let them. If you are legally a minor, it's harder because the laws are often backward and confusing. Still, get legal advice if your parents are beating you or abusing you mentally. There may be a halfway house in your community. If not, at least find out what your options are. If your parents throw you out or you run away, it won't be easy, but it may still be better than living in a potentially dangerous situation with them. Whatever you do, don't hustle. You'll never see the far side of 30 if you do. It's better to take a low-paying job with some dignity than to fall into that trap. And remember, you aren't the first person to find yourself in this situation. I left/was ejected from my home in the early 60s at age 18 with $14 in my pocket. I didn't lie, I didn't steal, and I didn't hustle. I went hungry for a few years, but I could still hold my head up. We do survive somehow. As we survive, we learn and we grow. One thing I have learned is not to let anyone force me into choosing a sexual preference. It isn't a profession. I know that people prefer you to be either straight or gay. That way you can be pigeonholed. But life is full of surprises, and if you are fortunate, your sexual development will grow too. We human beings are more fluid and flexible than society allows. Just why are we such a rigid culture over the issues of sex, sexual preference, and gender is a vast topic. If I had a lifetime to study it, I probably still wouldn't know half the answers. And here all the way back in 1983 to 82, 83, just talking about gender. It's awesome. I probably still wouldn't know half the answers. I do know, however, from observation, that we each have the potential for growth and for deep relationships with other people. For instance, you may spend the first 30 years of life in gay relationships. Then you find yourself falling in love with a wonderful person from the opposite sex. Don't fight it. Rejoice in it. Love is always a cause for rejoicing. You aren't repudiating being gay. You are affirming being human. On the other hand, you might marry, have children, and live most of your life according to the socially approved pattern. Your spouse dies when you are in your mid-40s. A few years after that, you find yourself in love with a person of the same sex. How wonderful that you are able to find solace, companionship, and affection. If someone wants to call you a queer, let them. The only people who are queer are the people who don't love anybody. If you can remember that, you'll not only survive, you'll triumph. Rita Mae Brown, Charlottesville, Virginia, 1986. Thank you, Rita Mae Brown. You've just heard the introduction of One Teenager in 10. Still available in some places. And now, we'll take a pause for the next chapter.